Buenos días y bienvenidos a mi cocina. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to Aguascalientes to eat this amazing torta de lechón. It is this slow roasted marinated pork shoulder with chicharrones and cueritos drowned in a salsa de aguacate. It is incredible. This marinade is super simple. Basically, it's a blender marinade. So you throw everything in. Yeah, the hardest part is actually peeling the garlics, but everything else, easy peasy. Just a little bit of garlic. In the recipe, I call for 96 grams of salt. That is a lot, and you're probably gonna freak out, but trust me, I have made this a lot of times, and this is a lot of meat. It's gonna take that salt, but if you're scared of it, I would recommend using half the amount, and then you can always add more you can't take out. Oh. Wow, even the cameraman doesn't believe you. I went up a little bit higher on speed, mainly because I want everything to get nice and broken up, but I don't really care if I get air incorporated into it because it's a marinade and it's just gonna sit on top of the pork. The one thing that you do wanna make sure is you don't let it blend for too long, because after a while, the blades will actually cause the fresh herbs to turn black. So it's important, don't overblend it. But this is what you are looking for. It'll almost look like a pesto. In the recipe, I call for pork shoulder, which is my favorite cut of pig. It is this part, obviously shoulder. It's the front leg. It's usually the part that's like further up. And so this part of the leg doesn't move quite as much. There's actually a lot of fat and marbling, and you can probably find it with the skin on, which is what I want, because that skin is gonna create the chicharrones and the cueritos that I love in lechon. Because I need chicharrones in my life, I actually bought a piece of pork belly. So this has the skin on it. It's basically gonna be the same thing except with a little bit of added fat and meat on the bottom, which I'm not mad at. So that's why I have two portions. But normally you would see the skin wrapped around the shoulder, and that's what you should be buying. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my knife, and this is a sharp paring knife, and I just wanna make little holes. So on yours, you should have the skin. So you're just gonna puncture the skin and then just twist and make a little hole. This is going to allow the marinade to penetrate the meat, and you'll get those flavors, you'll get all of the garlic and all of those herbs inside the flesh. And so the entire shoulder will be seasoned through. Now that both sides have holes, we are going to add the marinade. So I'm gonna do it on top of this sheet tray. And all you need to do is just pour with one hand and kind of push it in, work it into the holes with the other. You just want to go in, get into every little nook and cranny, push it into those holes. And the great thing about this marinade is the longer it sits, the better it's going to be. So I normally do this at least 1 day ahead, but if you have 3 days, put it in for 3 days, it'll get even better. All right, this is ready for the refrigerator. It's going to sit there for at least 24 hours, but up to 3 days. But because I'm really hungry and these boys are really hungry, I actually did this on Saturday while they were out having fun, drinking and going to parties. It is Saturday afternoon. The boys are all gone. It's just me and Choco. We actually just got back from the mercado, and I went to get some pork shoulder for the lechon. So I'm gonna prep these, get them in the fridge, let them get good and seasoned, and then I will cook them tomorrow for our Monday shoot. It is a little after 9 o'clock on Sunday night, and the pork has been marinating for about 36 hours. So I am going to cook this pork off so that it will be ready by the time we start shooting, and we will have a delicious family meal, and also we will have a swap for the video. One more thing before it goes in, we need to pour in a can of beer. This is just going to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan, but also it's gonna help steam the meat. So we'll get the flavor of the beer, and also we'll give a little insurance policy that the meat is not gonna dry out. So the pork has been cooking for probably about maybe close to 10, 11 hours. The boys aren't here yet, but they'll be here soon. By the time they get here, it will be completely done and shreddy and falling apart. In the 8 hours that it takes to cook the pork, we are actually going to make the salsa. So the first salsa that we're going to make is a salsa de aguacate. And in the recipe, I actually noted that you should make a double batch of this because you really want to drown this torta in this salsa. It's going to be so good. It's full of really creamy avocados, and then you get like that sort of bright acidity from the tomatillos, and then lots of heat from serranos and jalapenos. This is a super easy salsa because everything just goes in the blender. Creamy, it's kind of thick. It's gonna coat the pork. It's gonna soak into the bolillo. All right, let me see. Oh my God, this is so good. Okay, you guys have to try this. The other condiment that I'm gonna make for the lechon is curtido. It's basically a fermented cabbage. So it's cabbage, carrots, onions, garlic, and lots of jalapenos. And you basically just chop everything up and let it sit at room temperature. I think 4 days is the perfect amount of time for it to ferment. And as it ferments, it gets a little bit more acidic, all of the flavors come together, and then there's something magical happens with the cabbage. And it gets a lot of those kind of funky flavors that you would either get in a kimchi or in a sauerkraut. And when you pair that with all of the heat from the jalapenos, it is incredible. So now we're just gonna let this sit. After about 30 minutes, a lot of liquid's gonna form at the bottom, and then the best thing to do is, after 30 minutes, just take it and put it into a really big mason jar and then seal it up. And then I usually check mine once a day for 4 days, and it should be room temperature. If your house is actually like in the 80s, you probably only need like 2 days fermentation, but if your house is in the 70s, 4 days is ideal. I drove into Aguascalientes, which is in the northern-ish part of the country, and I wanted to try the birria. There's a very specific style of birria that exists there. So I went to the mercado there in Aguascalientes, I had the birria, it was really incredible, and then I met some people that were like, okay, while you're here, you have to try the Torta de Lechón at Rudy's. So I was like, well, I'm already kind of full, but okay, I'll do it. So I walked over to Rudy's stand, and he had this case that was completely full of lechon. It was so incredible. The smell was amazing. It was just wafting down the street. I asked him, what do you have? He's like, I have tortas and I have tacos. What do you want? I was like, well, what do you like? He's like, I think the tortas are the best. I was like, great, make me one. This thing was loaded. It was full of this incredibly falling-apart-y, delicious, succulent lechon with chicharrones and cueritos, and then he drowned it in this salsa de aguacate, tomatillos, y serranos, jalapenos. It was one of the best tortas I've had in all of Mexico, and I knew at that moment, this recipe needs to be in the book. It smells so good. Wow. Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Let me show you my leg. This is what you want to see. When you know it's fully cooked, the bone starts to get exposed because the meat is just like falling apart and pulling away from the bone. And you should be able to, if you have asbestos hands, be able to just like pull the meat off like that. This is perfectly cooked pork. Oh my God, so good. If this was your pork shoulder with the skin on, then the skin would be all over. But because I wrapped it in pork belly, because yum, I'm just gonna move this over here and we're gonna crisp up the top. So I'm just gonna brush off some of this marinade that was on there. I'm gonna brush it with oil and then I will put it under the broiler and it'll get really nice and crispy. And this is what happens when you put pork belly under the broiler. Oh, that is what you want to hear. So I didn't have Sebas around while I was developing this recipe when I was by myself during lockdown, but he had suggested, or I guess politely asked me if I was going to toast the bread in butter, which I looked at him like, why would I toast this in butter? And then it occurred to me, I have all this insanely delicious and flavorful manteca that's been melted that has been cooking the pork for the last 11 hours. So what I'm actually gonna do is this. Oh, wow. Oh, such a good sound. Oh God, the moment I've been waiting for. I don't even know where to start. You get a crunch from the toasted bread, and then you get the chiccharon. All of those flavors, like the marinade is like really bright and herby, but with that long roast, it gets this nuttiness, but you get the pop of the white wine vinegar, all of that roasted garlic, and then just that delicious, incredible porky richness from the shoulder. It is so good. And then the salsa de aguacate, it just creams everything, and you get these pops of like serrano and jalapeno. So good. I'm going in for another one. Sorry, boys. If you like this recipe, you can buy my cookbook on May 3rd, 2022 out in bookstores or online, and make sure you hit like and subscribe and you will be notified as soon as there's another Mi Cocina episode. And tomorrow we are going to be making tacos gobernador. It is a really delicious shrimp taco with a toasted flour tortilla and lots of gooey cheese.